Sawtooth Dave. What's up, guys? I've alluded to doing this collection video for quite some time now, so I figure it's time to sit down and actually do it. I have zero clue what this is going to turn out like. I tried one last night. Audio didn't come out well, so kind of feel like I'm repeating myself a little bit here, so if I sound like I'm rushed or anything like that, my bad. I'm just trying to do it how I want to do it. I don't know whether I should break it up or just dive into it chaotically, so let's just do it differently. Let's just dive in whatever knife I pick up, and then I'll set somewhere else, and let's do it on one at a time. Probably not going to be a whole lot of close-ups on this, but hey, it is what it is. I'm going to do it all standing. Hell with it. Kickstand, number 1. Latest DSK added to the collection. Y'all keep track for me how many I got of all these, but I think I'm over 10 of the DSKs. I want to say 12-ish, I think is what I got. It's DSK kickstand number 1. This got the surface oxide blade. A little bit thicker stock, kind of the medium of the 3 that I have ground. I gotta find a place to put these. Put them on the ground, why not? All right, next one I'm gonna pick up, GF2 Tonto. This is also surface oxide blade, bling bling clip off another kickstand that I'll show you in a minute, but I've showed this GF2 several times. Anniversary gift from my wife. She calls it Annie. You know, to call it my wife's knife is kind of a stretch because it is her knife, technically. Like, I don't carry it that much. She's pretty much the only one that carries it. Occasionally, I'll carry it, but it's really my knife if we're not, you know, BSing myself here. Set those 2 down. Atreyu is next. So, I believe that's how he says it, Atreyu. I've owned several of these. This particular one is a little bit thicker blade with the natural kind of belt lines in it. A little bit of milling pattern. A little bit thicker tie as well. Cool knife. This one is a stiffer detent, so the flipper works good, but the thumb flick. So I had another one that Denise has now, but you could flick it real good. This one, well, I just able to do it. First time I was able to do it. So maybe if I'm all the way off the lock bar, maybe that's the heat. Nope, I can't do it at all. Let's see if I can get my hands. I'm not gonna sit here and do it on video, but good flipping action, not so good on the finger flick. I just think it needs to be tweaked. Once I tweak it a little bit, I'll probably get it where I want it. But Atreyu, these sharp points kind of bother me a little bit on this particular model, especially with the thinner tie. It's a real pokey, stabby kind of thing. Miss Socks want to make a cameo, so if you see a cattail, that's just her. This is the Damascus kickstand that I alluded to that pocket clip coming off of. This is the DSK I've had the longest. I actually got this from a dude who sent it to Dirt Warning. Dirt Warning did a video on it, so if you want to see a better video than I'm ever going to do on it, Dirt Warning's got a video on this particular kickstand, actually from way back. I'm sure you can find his stuff searching wise a lot better than you can find my stuff. I don't know, it's just a weird way of doing a collection video. I just feel like the top down is so overdone that we got to do something different, right? It's just my style. So this is kind of the model that kind of goes with that other one, Damascus. This is a GF1 Damascus, same kind of tie, you know, setup as this, but these two as a pair, like, let's see if I get it in the camera here. So the kickstand and the GF1 kind of a pair, kind of go together well. This is kind of like my modern day Bruiser Sebenza. Like, I do have Sebenza still, but like, it really does feel like a Bruiser guy's Sebenza. GF stands for Gentleman Folder, if you didn't know. I'm assuming that's where he got the idea from. All right, the dumbest thing I've probably ever done with the DSK is buy one of these super expensive, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of these copper inlaid Damascus. Immediately take it apart, make a new scale for it. This one's the contoured scale if you hadn't already seen it, and refinish the whole blade. And then it wasn't dark enough and meat enough for me, so I went ahead and tumbled it too. So kind of a weird finish, but I think it works for this knife really well. Kind of the dark and mean. This is the flipperless kickstand that I have. So probably the most expensive and most customized DSK that I have. You know, once I take them apart and start working on these things, generally I put ceramic bearings and the ceramic detent in them. Coming from Dan, they're always steel. You know, some makers still like steel. They can't tell the difference. Like I heard Dirt Warning saying on one of his videos that he couldn't tell the difference between ceramic bearings and a steel bearing. So I think it's like if you're an HRC guy or a sharpening guy, like if you're one of those action guys, you can definitely tell the difference. I guess I'm one of those guys because I like the ceramic feel better. Never thought I'd be like an action guy, but it is what it is. And I'm just randomly picking up knives that are kind of behind me, strewed about the thing here. So no particular order of how these are coming, just whatever I'm grabbing. Javelina, so DSK also, Javelina. I did blast these scales as well, and the thumb studs are off of Formax American Formax. I'm probably going to change the thumb studs. I'm just too lazy to do it, but I like the larger diameter as far as the look goes. Dan's come with that, like it's almost like a shoulder bolt instead of a thumb stud. So I've got one, and I'll show you here in a minute on one of mine that kind of works for, but for the most part, the studs need to be changed on most of his knives, in my opinion. Like, I just don't like the studs that come with them. We've been on all DSKs. It just was random that I dropped them all right there. But now, next one I grab, Sergei Rogovets Rhino. Like everything, I got to tweak it. So by tweaking it, I messed up stock hardware. It's kind of like the snake bite thing from Medford, but it was really shallow and it was red Loctited. So couldn't get it apart without messing it up. So I ended up changing hardware on it. So this is just aluminum oxide. I didn't tumble it afterwards. So that's why this kind of doesn't go with the flow of the rest of the knife. It didn't come this way. This is all mine. I did chip the tip on this one, but this is a super chunky guy. So like a 1/4 inch blade-ish, maybe thicker. I don't know. I never actually measure these things. I probably should be in a machinist and telling you guys, but it's thicker than 3/16, and I'll just leave it at that. But it comes down to a really, really thin behind the edge kind of grind, which, you know, he's using a smaller wheel to get that, probably 8-inch wheel or something, but that tall of a grind on an 8-inch wheel and a super thick blade nets you a pretty acute edge. And if you're a heathen or an idiot like me, you'll break stuff like that. But Sergei Rogovets, awesome, top-notch work, all hand done, no CNCs. Couldn't recommend his work enough. If it visually appeals for you, you will probably like the knife. Let's see. Back to the DSK line. Megalodon number 1. This is my recent Megalodon. This one came from Cargo Chris. Have I said where the other ones came from? Not really, so I'm going to try to avoid that then. What's to be said about Megalodons? They're the biggest, best handling flipper bruiser-wise that I've ever handled. I can't think of it. Like the XR3 from Rogovets is probably like another one like that. The big dire wires are kind of sort of like that, but like for what I own, this is definitely the best flipper in the action. I haven't done anything this one. This doesn't have the ceramic bearings. This is steel. All the stuff from Dan, like, haven't done anything with this one. So that's a Megalodon. While we're at it, I just happened to grab the second one. This is the other Megalodon. This is the first one I got. And, you know, both these Megalodons have these kind of flamed accent things. I kind of wish it didn't, but I don't have a whole lot of DSKs with that stuff on it. And since almost everything else I have from DSK, I usually blast myself. If Dan doesn't blast, struggling with trying to keep them both stock, but I think for now I am going to keep them stock. I don't think I've had either one of the. I don't think I've replaced the bearings or the detent ball on either one of these because it was tuned so good from Dan that you know, some things you just don't want to mess with. Leave it alone. That's one of these for me. Like, I don't leave much alone, but the Megalodon really is a dialed in flipper. If you want a huge flipper that's dialed, get you a Megalodon. All right, changing gears again. SMF. This is the Performance series, the newer version. Performance, not the MSC version. You can tell by the clip, I guess, and what Steve was saying. You know, I had that Dwayne Dwyer that now Steve has, the Dwayne Dwyer custom, and it's cool to have a custom. But when I went to grab an SMF, I always went for this one. Something about the titanium, the feel, execution. I kind of wish it had a titanium backspacer in it versus the standoffs, but that's really my only complaint. Other than that, like, this is the perfect SMF for me personally. Like, some of the fancier grinds and that sort of thing, like if I really wanted to do something with this, I'm just gonna grind it myself. So why buy a fancier one to do the grinds on? And that's kind of where I got with the Dwayne Dwyer's. It was a cool ass custom, but ultimately, like, I would rather put my touch on a stock one versus buying a custom. I guess that's where I'm at in my life. And you know how that goes. Unumzon. So what's to be said that hadn't already been said about the Unumzon? Don't carry this one that much. Definitely not, to me, a bruiser. I know a lot of other people think they're bruisers, but this is probably one that I was like, this is as gentleman as I can get. Like, well, I got a Sebenza that's probably a little bit more gentleman, but like for me, like, this is, I'm not afraid to use it, but it's definitely not what I would consider a hard use, for me at least, style of knife. More like a little refined. I did change the thumb studs, part of the thumb studs. I milled off and then retapped it and put different tie studs in instead of that little O-ring groove. But so the warranty is void on this one, but I don't really care. Like, if something goes wrong with it, I can buy hardware and stuff. That's probably about the least invasive thing I can think of. I mean, whatever. This is perfect. Production knives, that I'm not really into production. I'm pretty much moving into customs. But this is like ones like this one and the Sebenza are ones that I'm just going to have in the collection, because if I sell them, I'm going to want another one. So I just to have, and also the trilogy kind of thing. So while we're talking about it, I'm just going to break out the Sebenza because it's right here anyhow. So this is the Sebenza I got. So I got the Insingo Blade 31 and Magna Cut with only the single stupid CRK stud, which I don't know why they void your warranty for pushing out a stud. Like, it's such a dumb thing in this day and age to have a warranty like that. But anyhow, this one will probably be voided pretty soon with real studs, because I quite honestly have fought that stud and disliked it for so long now that I've owned this knife for, well, Blade Show will be, I got it at Blade Show 23, so this will be a year that I've owned it, and I've fought, you know, keeping it in there. I haven't owned it the whole time, but for the majority of time in that year, I've fought trying to change the studs. I'm gonna change it eventually. Hell with the warranty. But both, once again, it's just knives that, like, on a production scale, that I like. If I got rid of one, I'd want one. So I'm just gonna keep those in the collection. I've already spent the money on them and just be done with it. The only hinder I have left in my collection, XM24, this is pre-Triway. Currently on a kind of ugly Mercado scale. I have a G10 for it as well. Quite honestly, I just need to make a titanium scale for it, and I'd probably like this one way more. But this is kind of like bottom line for me, bruiser wise. Like, I will carry this one as a primary, but not very often. This is usually a backup for me. So while I do like this knife a ton, and I did take it off it was on Teflon from the factory. It's on phosphor bronze now, but I love the pre-Triway spear point. I've had several of the Triways. I like them all, but they seem to be better on bearings and not quite as good on the washers. This one's what came on Teflon, and you can tell it's dialed better for that style of action. It just is what it is. I don't know if all of them that way, but it's just been my experience from the ones that I've handled. Oh, what do we see here? Another SMF. Hope y'all don't mind me doing it this way, but maybe it'll make a good video. We'll see. Another SMF, older one. This one's definitely been customized a ton, but this is the pre-steel stamping. So the S30V, the bigger standoffs. The chevron scale came off of a newer than the original one of these did. This been KG gun coated and reground and resharpened, and you know, it's just a totally custom SMF, customized SMF. And had it. Shit, it might be one of the longest knives I've owned. I think I've owned the DLC Sawtooth that I started the video with. Owned it longer than this one, but not by much. Probably that same year I've got this one. So I want to say I've had this one since 2012-ish, 2011-ish, somewhere in there. Medford, we're just changing all over the place. So probably my least favorite visually, what my wife's taste hidden knife. So technically her knife, but you know, I got another one of these, and I'll show it in a second, because basically I didn't want to carry this one and mess it up. So when she gets in her mood wanting to carry a big bruiser of a knife, then she'll carry this one on occasion. But it's kind of becoming more and more rare. We don't really have time to do motorcycle rides and all that stuff like we used to do. We used to do a lot of that kind of stuff. It just doesn't happen as much as it used to. So like her carrying big knives like that's kind of, but a thing of the past, more or less. Like she prefers a little smaller flipper knives now. So the other one, basically, like I said, I got this one so I can actually carry one of these and use one of these. You know, I struggle with the Goldano. Should I keep it? Should I not keep it? Kind of thing. But I just haven't done anything with it yet. And I guess there's not enough draw to this knife for me. Like, it's not a super connection with me to this knife to make me want to customize it more than what it is. So will this one will stay or this one will go? I don't know. But for right now, it's in the collection. So Trouble Blades Mofo, so Canadian company. They used to make all handmade stuff, so this is the newer version of this Mofo. So it's a much thinner blade stock and titanium than the old ones was. I wish I had the old one versus this one, 100%, but I still dig this one for what it is. This is very reminiscent if you have ever had a Strider J2, so it's about the same thickness as that J2 was, kind of a little bit on the thinner side for such a big knife. And you don't get much blade for the whole length of the whole knife. I mean, that's a big ass knife with only this little bit of edge on it, comparatively speaking, you know. But still, that's like, you know, when you talk about practicality and bruisers, is it not an oxymoron already, right? You know, still a cool knife. Kind of running on that. I don't know that they're phosphor bronze, but there's some kind of washers like that. They're not Teflon. What's the other one that Emerson uses? I think that's what it's on. Enough of that one, right? Everybody cool with that one? Mr. G. So this one came to me all colored, so it's all blasted, subdued now, which is kind of more my style. But Mr. G, I think this one's starts with a P. I'm not even gonna try to say the name of it. So Mr. Gorky or Mr. G, Croatian maker, handmade. Just all I can say about these guys, and this is the only one I've ever handled from Mr. G, so I don't know that he's continually all that way. But only thing I can say about these guys is, well, they have very minimal amount of tools. They turn out an excellent product, and quite honestly, like, a lot to be learned in this for me personally. Like, there's a lot of pride in this maker, and you can definitely tell that the action is money. I've had this one all apart, and it's still money. I think he makes his own bearings because this pivot is way bigger than what you normally find from any of the supply places, right? So very good quality knife. Highly recommend checking out on Mr. G if you hadn't already. And the prices are actually pretty dang reasonable for this level of a custom, you know. Flying right through another DSK. Sorry, it's gonna be the predominant maker because I have more of his. Recluse, and yes, I blasted it and modified this, modified backspacer, modified clip. What else can we talk about this one? Obviously I've sharpened it too, if you can't tell. I don't think I re-acid etched this one. I think this is a factory etch. Oh, one thing I want to mention about DSKs, you see how it's scuffed here? See, if you ever get a new DSK, keep in mind that the blade, or the pivot screw backs out. So one thing you're going to want to do is Loctite it if you like what's going on the inside. If you want to take it apart, clean it and stuff, just use blue Loctite a little bit and make sure that pivot doesn't back out on you, because this is typically when I get them used, that you can see more of this on the DSKs, because the pivot backs out. People don't recognize it as backing out, and it starts scuffing the side of the knives. And I've got several like that I've bought from the secondary that are almost all scuffed like that because people didn't realize it, and they scuff their new knife and get mad and they want to sell it and get some of their money back. So I don't care personally. I like the little scars on the knife, but if you wanted a perfect knife, you want to Loctite that pivot on DSKs. I don't think he does any Loctite from the factory, or from, I guess I should say, his garage or whatever it is. Max Ace Sandstorm. So this one I did remove the, what do you call it? Lock bar stabilizer thingamabobber on this one. This one has been frag patterned by Rodney over at Knifetanium, and it was anode when I got it, but I blasted it because I can't leave nothing alone. I like this V1 much better than the V2. I already kind of covered it in videos, but it's very weird because it's got a hole in the blade where this pin's supposed to go in it, right? The pin that goes right through here. So it hangs up, kind of like, people call it double clutching. You can kind of see in here. And you would think, if you're like I don't know, the knife's got to be perfect kind of guy, you're not going to like this knife at all. Me, I like quirkiness of knives. So to me, I love the whole, it gets hung up and you got to kind of shake it down. I kind of like that of this knife. So the quirkiness of this knife actually gives it a little bit of character, which makes me kind of drawn to it more. And the fact that I got some of Rodney's work on this is just like, you know, as a machinist, kind of look up to what Rodney does and some of his work. And, you know, it's kind of like elevating each other. So like if I do something and he sees it, he does something, you know, it's kind of, it elevates our game amongst each other. And it's not like a competition, but it's just a friendly, like, you know, I can't do this. I'll go ahead and tell you right now. Not to call those, or to run those radiuses and get everything even. I think he said there was a lot of hand filing going on in this too, but just as a machinist, I don't even know how I would approach holding it to do it, but it's an honor to have some of his work, and to be something I would even want to try to do myself. I'm not really a pattern in titanium kind of guy, but you know, we're all into different things, and Rodney's got skills, so I'm glad I got some of his work. Moving on, 229. So I will say that I've always liked the 229s, the 228s, all that stuff. I thought I would always own one eventually, and the time came when it actually came through. And the biggest factor for me was this didn't have the 2 screws in the skull. So this is that pre-2 screw in the skull. Y'all probably know more about it than me. But like me and doing everything I do, I didn't like the sharp pointies on the edges of this. So the ones that were here. And also I didn't like it on this. So I basically radiused the whole thing and then rounded the corners off of everything and blasted it all. So you can kind of see it more rounded. Hopefully you can see it now. If you have a 228 or 229, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's definitely more a better feel in the hand. But you can see, like, most people call these knives bruisers. Like, to me, it's barely, and I'm just like kind of loosely putting my hands up here, but I barely get that fourth finger on there. So I gotta kind of cram up to like use this knife. So this is pretty much like a backup roll for me, fidget knife, whatever you want to call it. But having been saying fidget, like, I took the bearings out of this because I hated how it just dropped shut. But now on washers, like, it's good. Like, I love that. Nice control, closed. I wish the detent was a little better, but you know, for a production knife, I can't really complain a whole lot. The grinds are awesome on this freaking knife. So, really cool knife. Glad to have one. And it's probably because ultimately I did that one for Billy, and then after doing his, I knew I was going to get another one. So it just is what it is. Back to DSK. Another GF2. This one is the Bowie. So the frame is going to be slightly different on here, and basically to accommodate when the knife comes down, to accommodate that, you know, tip up. So he kind of sort of left that corner more so. And this is oxide blade, thicker blade stock. This is the thumb stud I was alluding to a minute ago, which will probably get changed, but I kind of sort of thought on this one at least, I might leave this stud and I might cut a fuller in on this side to flick. I could flick off the knife, but it would be cooler if it had a fuller on this side. So I might cut a fuller in on this one, and then I might get rid of this surface oxide on the blade. Just not my favorite finish. I don't know. Everything that's like unique and like colorful like that, this one's kind of more subdued, so I kind of like it more than some of the other ones. But I don't know, prefer other finishes, I guess. But again, I might leave it. I don't know. Who knows, man? You know, if y'all watch me long enough, you know I generally don't leave anything alone that stays in the collection for a long period of time. So we'll see. But I dig it how it is right now. Still a cool knife. Hadn't even cracked into this one to change the bearings and stuff yet. I don't think I have yet, but I will. Yeah, one I never thought I'd own, Dalibor. So this is the unnamed model from Dalibor, integral model, impeccable. Once again, like I was talking about Mr. G, that they can take what they have for tooling, which I'm sure they're elevating their tooling game now, and make such a quality, nice piece. It honestly makes me think that I'm not being creative enough with the equipment I got, thinking through the stuff, because like they're using, or at least, you know, early days, using kind of primitive equipment and still making stuff work. You see the hole there that I had to put there to get this basically nut off the, it was Loctited, so I had to do something to break it. And it's nylon, running on nylon, so you can't really heat it up. So what else is to say about a Dalibor? If you've never handled one, I'm not gonna sit here and say it's the best ergos, the best anything really. Just the overall package of these and the design of these just screams Dalibor. He's got a unique style, and a knife that I honestly never thought I'd own, and probably the single most expensive model that I own of any knife is probably this Dalibor. Just super excited to own one. This is one of the knives I just never thought I'd own. All right, so once again, this is all random. I'm just kind of grabbing knives. I kind of see the camera focusing and unfocuses. Hopefully they don't mess with y'all eyes too much. Ooh, he's rambling. RSK Paragon. This is the custom, and what you're looking at is a custom scale as well. So the stock scale was carbon fiber, more of this style milling than what I liked on it. So I, you know, had to go full heavy, make it titanium, and then contour it. So hopefully you can see the contouring in it, and it kind of sort of rounds about. Close this up, so okay, you can see contoured scale. So you can see how he does the milling. It kind of sort of mimics this style of contour, but with the contour in this one, it adds a little bit of weight. And for this particular knife, because the handle's skinny this way, it's long, but it's skinny. And so big hands, you can see big hands. It's like, it's still, it'll fill your hands better, but it's still, I wish there was more handle there for me personally, but you know, it is what it is. But still a good sized knife, and you can see, you know, it's not small on the hands. My hands fit in there pretty good. So it's, you know, it's decent at this point. Action is definitely better now than what it was too. But I've had a couple RSKs through here. I used to own that, what's it called? The Orca, the custom Orca that now Brother Jose has. But this one just kind of suits my needs more. I kind of wish this was a Damascus blade. It would kind of look better that way. And I may end up doing something with this blade, but who knows? For right now, leave it as is. Just cool to have RSK in the collection, I guess. And you know, it's a unique knife. So I think for me, I like the more unique stuff rather than, let's say this next one, even though it's production, you know, it's more of a unique production, but Artica. So a discontinued model from Medford, from what I gathered, which is pretty much like flavor of the day. If he ever feels like bringing it back, he's going to bring it back. So Artica, obviously I reground this one, and I actually, I don't know if it shows the camera or not, chipped the tip on this one because I was in a place where the door locked and nobody had a key, so I fixed the door for him with this knife particular. But it ground, you know, it's not paper thin, but it's definitely a way more usable knife than the stock Artica. If you ever handled the stock Artica, it's pretty much a pry bar with a sharpened edge. But cool to have in the collection. I like the uniqueness of this one. Will I say it's my favorite knife? No, I will not. I definitely prefer the TFFs and the Fat Daddy over this one, but it's still a cool knife. I'm glad to have one in the collection. And obviously, if you've never handled one, it's got the thicker blade stock, so it's kind of a overall chunkier knife, which I like. Major Customs. You're gonna see some marker on this one. It's proposed stuff I'm thinking about doing to myself. So Mazur, I think is how you spell it. It was a custom maker, kind of sort of more popular, say, I don't know, 5-7 years ago, something like that. And I don't think he even takes orders. I don't even know if he makes knives anymore or not. So kind of sad to see another American maker kind of go by the wayside, but maybe he just wasn't getting the traction he wanted. Maybe he wanted to do something different. Maybe he can make more money doing other things. I don't know what the story was, but this is the Sin Eater. I did regrind this one already, but I did this one like hollow all the way up to the, and you can kind of, I just followed his kind of grind line basically to make it like this. So I'm thinking about this line. I was thinking about go ahead and making a compound grind and go ahead and grinding that Tanto in there. You can kind of see the line here on this side. And the other thing I was thinking about doing is extending that fuller on out, because it'd be better for the finger. It's not the greatest flipper action. I'll probably modify the clip a little bit and probably blast that black off the titanium too. But all things I'm speculating. But you know, it's one of those, to me, this is another one of those knives that like you can't just go find it. And they're kind of sort of rare. And this one was actually a gift too. So another reason to keep. Oh shit. Hit my bill, sorry. Back to DSKs. Imagine that, right? We'll keep rolling through them. It's the VXC, or the custom version of the VX. There's a VXP as well, which is a production version. This one came with a black G10 scale. I rocked it for a lot of time with that black G10, but it had holes in it, which I'm not a fan of holes. So black G10 and the holes, like, I knew eventually I would make a scale for it. And this one is full tie, full thickness. I try to match Dan's work the best I could, so that if you just picked it up and looked at it, you would think it was Dan's work. This also has this lasered logo on it. I had a GF1. It was like a two-tone that had this kind of laser that kind of sort of was a pairing of this one, but Steve from San Francisco bought that one a while back. I don't know, it probably was last year or something. Anywho, VXC. I'll probably end up doing a regrind and re-acid etch this one. It's a little thick behind the edge for what I like, and especially after I show you that Rogovitz. Like after you use that knife a little bit and then put this one in hand, this one definitely seems thicker. So taste change as I get better with grinding. My tastes are evolving in what I prefer in grind. So I probably will thin this one out a little bit and redo that finish. All right, another one that's kind of sort of a rare bird that you don't see very often, especially on the configuration that this one is. Obviously, this has been worked by me, so all subdued aluminum oxide blast plus the acid stone wash on this one. I am keeping his stock hardware for the time being. I probably will change the thumb studs, and I'll probably make another pocket clip for it too. I did modify that pocket clip a little bit. This one is running on phosphor bronze, so there's not very many of these floating around there on the phosphor bronze. Is it the best action? Nope, it's not. Is it a cool knife that still definitely functions well? Yes, and it's also very reminiscent of the first one I owned, which was number 24 that he ever made. So I think for me, that's why I connect with this more, is because it kind of brings me back to the original one that I had, which, you know, honestly, it probably wasn't any better than this one, but I just remember how much I really enjoyed that one. So I kind of got one that runs on phosphor bronze, so they just don't pop up that often. So super happy to have it. So I think this is a Shark 1.0, I believe. Don't quote me, but I believe it is. I don't believe he made anything else after that first initial run on phosphor bronze. Heater, POW. This one has to have a regrind as well, but it came out a little funky because some of the work that he did, which is kind of like masking and bluing, and I don't know how he does all that stuff, but you know, it's still got the theme of it. This one became much snappier with the regrind, and I don't really want to change anything about the way this particular one feels. It has a good snappy detent, so this one will be fine on that. I'm not a huge fan of that Hoback rolling detent, which he's rocking. Both these heaters have. I have the Hoback rolling detent, which I'm not a huge fan of, but on this particular one, it works fine. So I'll probably leave this one alone as is and leave it Cool little knife. I don't really carry this one all that often. It's a big chunk of a knife. Not that it's that long, but it's super wide. So even in the pocket, I like to roll this one as a secondary. And you can see as a secondary roll, I usually carry my wallet in the same pocket, but this is a pocket hog. So it's taking up a decent amount of room. So very, very rarely do I carry this as a main. It's kind of a small knife for me as a main carry, but for a secondary. But even with the secondary, I kind of got to be ready for, like, I gotta have deeper pockets or willing to cram in that left pocket for me. So I don't carry this one as often as I should. I do enjoy the knife, don't get me wrong. And it's not small, but it's smaller than what I like, right? And then here's the other heater I got, which is the MOW. This one does have kind of a shittier detent. These Hoback rolling detents, I'm just not a huge fan of them. I don't see any advantage. I have them actually. So what I'm thinking about doing is just plugging it and then drilling it like a regular detent and see if I can get a better detent feel out of this particular one, because the regrind that I did on this one did take a little bit of the weight out of a lot of the weight out of the blade, so the action does feel differently now. Hard to describe, but you can see it's a little bit lazier on the flick because the detent sucks, and there's just nothing you can do about that unless you fix the detent. So I'm gonna try to fix the detent and make this one more that I carry more often. But both these 3V, both of them by a unique maker who does odd stuff, like in this day of age of repeating the same thing that everybody else does, which I'm guilty of too. I'm probably going to do the same thing as a maker. I'm not that creative, but you can see that the backspacer looks like it'd be hard to hold, all these odd grinds, and I've done videos on all these if you're really interested, but for some reason, as odd as it looks, and you put it in your hand, you're like, it's not that bad. It just kind of works. So I dig the heaters. They're cool. Glad to have them, and you know, from a bruiser collection point of view, like I feel like the collection would be incomplete without the heater personally. And he's starting to make them again now, but I think for a while there he didn't. TFF1H, probably my overall favorite Medford that I own. I don't know, I may have owned a couple. You know, I've owned so many Medfords over the years, it's hard for me to remember what I've had first, especially like what I have currently the longest. But I know I've had this one for several years now. This broke in really well, and this is the combination, the H, with the, just like the 187. It's 3/16, 3/16, and 3/16. So all the material thicknesses. So this is what I like in my thicknesses. It's basically the same equivalent of a sawtooth. I mean, we're talking about relatively. So the overall thickness is about the same. And then just the ergos of this knife, for some reason, like, you know, certain knives you pick up that just kind of like, it just soothes you. And this is definitely the one for me. So I kind of sort of reminiscent, and I'm loosely stretching this, but SMF-ish, where you have the extra meat in the back that kind of fills the palm a little more. And then you get the choke up position too. So like this just works for me. It's just a great knife overall. I haven't really done anything to that one, which is one of the few that I could say that's about. District 9 Catastrophe. Oh, what can we say about the District 9 that probably hasn't been said? To my knowledge, and you can definitely fact check me because that's just all hearsay from what I heard from other people, but I heard District 9 was pre-Riot, but basically the same company that used to make Riots. And I think District 9 is doing stuff again, so I don't know if they are Riot or a different company or however that worked, but for whatever reason, the mechanicalness of this, the Mech Warrior, or, you know, robot-ish, whatever, how the modern take of this spaceship-y, however you want to call it, like, appeal, that's not what I was drawn to the knife. I was drawn to the knife because it's so big and beefy, and there's no way to really tell you, and it's not going to come across on videos. It's just one of those knives where if you got big hands and want a nice, smooth curve and feel that hand and just feel like a good substantial piece, man, this thing just by far my favorite Chinese knife. Just one of those ones that, like, you put it in your hand, just feel like you can do a ton of work. It was a little thick behind the edge when I first got mine, so I did a regrind on mine and re-acid etched mine. I left the tip basically where it was. I probably should have kind of come into that tip a little bit and thinned it out a little bit more for me, but for the time being, really happy with that District 9. The other thing I can say about these District 9s is if you like a knife that's built, like, you can't really find any faults on this one. Like, it's such an overbuilt knife from a technical point of view, where you got stop pins here, plus a stop pin there. You got a pivot that screws down and basically has a cap that rolls to secure it, so you don't need Loctite on it. You know, there's so many different things about this one. I don't care less about this hokey pokey locky bullshit. The clip's unique, because it's spring loaded. Just a lot of really cool features of this knife that, like, if you've never had one or or handled one, it's definitely worth taking the time to try to find one, in my opinion. I think there are copies of those too, so it's kind of funny that Chinese people copy Chinese knives, but it apparently it happens. I don't know, like, but shout out to Beard Dune for acquiring that one for me, and I really love that one. I have two of these proponents. I'm just showing you this one. The other one lives in a toolbox, and there's gonna be some knives in this video that I'm not including, basically because this is what I would consider the main. When I go to my safe and look at my knives, these are the knives I'm looking at. Like I've got the Benchmade I got from Steve Clare. I've got a Cold Steel that I got from Cue Ball. Like there's other knives that I've got. That other proponent from Will that I got. Like they're just kind of like in places, right? They're not in my safe. They're in places for various reasons. They're used more as a tool and less as a collectible, right? But this particular one, I don't carry that often, but it is the version for me because it's the plain tie. No milling pattern. It's the full frame lock, not the liner lock. The only thing that I wish this blade was not M390, but hey, you can't get everything. So I've not had any problems with it chipping yet, but it's a matter of time. I'm sure if I really get to using this knife, it's going to chip. But I got the D2 version too, so maybe try to blade swap it down the road. Who knows? We'll see. I will save these for last. I guess we already kind of showed them. This is one that's like, occasionally, I just want to try something. Like visually might appeal to me or something, and I just want to try something. I have zero clue. I haven't really heard a whole lot about these or anything like this. I just know that it used to be a friction lock, Snody friction lock. And if you followed Snody's work for a long period of time, like back when he used to work for Benchmade or design for Benchmade and that sort of thing, like this is kind of like after that little era from what I remember. He had a little friction folder that looked like this. And I was like, man, that's a cool frame lock version of that same thing. So I'm going to try it. This particular one's in S90, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this either, Artisan has like a couple different versions of this, like maybe a liner lock version or something, but this is like what they call the premium version, supposedly in S90, and I've reground this one pretty good. This one will probably get gone. It's on phosphor bronze. I took the bearings out and put it on phosphor bronze because to me it's a much better feel of a knife. Right? I don't like that whole drop and cut you kind of thing like some of you guys like. I prefer the more. I like the controlled action, or at least somewhat of a controlled action. But the detent sucks on this one, just like most Chinese knives. It just doesn't have the personality. So like, I wish I could breathe some more personality into it. And maybe I'll try, but for the most part, like, is it really worth it? So this will probably be a giveaway knife, but we'll see. Another one that was pretty much the same, like roll up to it was like, this was a design that as soon as it came out, as soon as the design was released, I was like, man, what a slick design. Just a real aggressive looking Tanto, very reminiscent of Emerson to me, like a modern take on Emerson. Obviously it doesn't have the thumb disc, but ergo wise, like overall look to me, kind of it just reminded me of Emerson. I don't know why. And then since I've got this one, I've kind of become friends with Sharif a little bit and talked to him a little bit. And like, it's cool to have that other extra step of owning a knife where you have a connection to a guy who's in the community who does try to help the community and is a knife designer as well. So really cool knife. Somehow the G10s or the carbon fiber series is still here. I struggle with this one because I really love the action and the feel of this knife. It just doesn't have the personality because, I'm in a different style knife than what this is, generally speaking. So I thought about taking this one apart and modifying it. I might just do that still. Because I love the knife so much. I just haven't changed anything about it. So is this temporary? Is this permanent? I don't know. This is kind of the maybe list for me. I think if I put my touches on it, I could probably make it more of a knife that I'd want to keep. But as of right now, it's kind of a cool one to check out for the time. I guess that's kind of where I'm at on that one. All right, Medford Marauder. This one I had the flame crap. I can't stand the flame crap, so we subdued it as normal. Do a little regrind on this one. This one's not as thin as I want behind the edge, so I probably will go back in and regrind some more on it. I think I'm happy with the tip, just not this main belly. Someone else tried to modify the detent and basically where the stop pin hits the frame here. They try to make it go in more so it hold the detent, but you can probably see by the way I'm doing this is pretty much no detent. So some of the Medfords, especially that you get off the secondary, a lot of them are kind of weak detents like that. So I'll get back into this one, try to fix it for real. I just haven't, it's one of the knives I hadn't really got into. We all go through phases. So sometimes bearings, sometimes phosphor bronze. Some of you guys like it all the time, but I think I go through more phase work. So like I was in a huge phosphor bronze phase when I got this one. Wasn't that long ago, but when I got this one, I was a huge phosphor bronze, and now I'm kind of back into bearings right now. So when I picked this one up, it kind of a little bit doesn't soothe everything about what I want the feel of the knife to be currently, right? That's always evolving. You know how that shit works. While we're on Medford's Fat Daddy, this is a blade slop Fat Daddy. So this was a regrind, Thomas Kennard-ish, somebody at Medford who did regrind the knife. And then this frame was off of a real Fat Daddy. And when I say real, I mean they were both Fat Daddies to start with, but this one was modified. The handle that one came on was modified. I modified it when I got back. So like it's been hacked and jacked, whatever you want to call it. So hacked and jacked is pretty much my MO, is it not? Anyhow, frame swap this blade. The other one that I built with this basically had the stock Fat Daddy blade. Was it stock? Can't remember if I got rid of that anno on that one or surface oxide on that one, or whatever they call it, Vulcan. I can't remember if I got rid of the Vulcan on that one or not, but I think I left it. And then the handle's that Thomas Kennard modified, and it's with another brother who traded me for a knife. So there's that one. Let's see. All right. It seems to be kind of like a lot of Medfords here at the end. I must have stacked them all at the end of the thing. So Gigantes, which is the latest knife I've got from Medford. Basically a huge Proxima, or whatever you call it, Proxima, whatever it's called. This is one that kind of surprises you at the action of it, because it's a pretty snappy blade for what it is. To me, he achieves that by a huge flipper tab. The thinness compared to like some of the other, like a Megalodon, that sort of thing. The thinness of material, so this is 3/16, it's like a 1/87. And then the skinniness of the profile of the blade. So while it is a long knife, it is a skinnier by length kind of knife than proportionally doesn't work. It's just a Slim Jim to me, more or less. Like here's a Sawtooth, which is a much shorter knife, but you can see the fatness of it. So like to me, I like the fatness. So while I do enjoy the knife, it's not my fave. It's just a cool knife to have in the collection, especially being a Medford fan. So I think I own more DSKs. Y'all probably tell me the count at the end of this. But I think Medford's pretty much right there at them. I'm pretty close to owning about the same amount, I think. At least in my mind right now. After I watch this video, I'll probably like, hey, you were way off, dude. Older Emboulet, the D2 with the snake eyes, or what do you call it? The 2-hole pivot versus the 6-hole pivot. Something about the older ones have a little better feel as far as like the newer ones are like all off the CNC. Like, and there must not be any like handy burn. And I think on this one it's still handy burn, so it just has a different feel to it in the hand. And this has a unique milling pattern that I kind of dig. I haven't really seen this milling pattern in a whole lot of others. And as soon as I put it in hand and felt it, I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely the right emboulet for me. I've had several of these emboulets. This is the one that remains, and it's in the D2, which, if you're someplace where shit rusts and you don't take care of your knives, I can understand why you don't like a D2. I'm in Arizona, hotter than hell here, and yes, we do have a monsoon season, but the D2 works fine for me. I'll wipe it down occasionally, and it's fine. Like I love the attributes of D2 as well. It's not great at anything, but it's good at everything, right? And for a hard to use knife, you want something that's tough. So D2 is tough too. So, like all what you want out of your knife. Speaking of tough steels, 3V Crusader. This one was I believe it's still the Fierce for Prey, but as Chris called it, the Excalibur. So this one was the one that was like the 5-inch knife, 5-inch blade knife. The handle was huge as hell. It just kind of felt awkward, like the handling of it. So I basically chopped it down until I got the other one. So here's some other Fierce for Prey. And both these have been modified, but you can see I pretty much made it the same kind of length as the other Fierce for Prey. But first knife I ever did a blade chop or a frame chop on, and redid the blade, and it's kind of like a faceted, like tops, I guess, or whatever, with a little swedge in there. So I don't know, regrind it, obviously. Pretty happy with this knife. The action wise on this knife now is way better than what it was factory. And if you ever watch Plethora of Blades, he did a video like huge flippers and why he likes them so much. But it's true, like if this, even your spine whack people, but if this lock fail with that huge flipper, if you're holding it correctly, there's pretty much, I'm gonna disengage it, like if I can do this right, even if you're holding it way back here, that huge flipper, I mean, you might get hurt, you might hurt your finger, but you ain't gonna get cut, right? Like, unless you're holding it, I don't know how you can hold it. I guess if you're way back here, I'm still hitting my finger. So like you ain't gonna get cut with a huge flipper like this. So there's something to be said about that if you're doing stupid shit with knives like I tend to do. The other one, just to re-go over it, this one was a regrind by Cuddy Cuts, not by me. I've had this one years at this point. It's probably the best overall handling Crusader that I've personally ever had in my collection. But from the factory or from the maker, huge, thick, super thick behind the edge. Like it's kind of ridiculous how thick they are. I wish he would do some thinner grinds. I really like his Cerakote style. Like both of those have some of that Cerakote work on. I wish I like his Cerakote style, but they're so thick behind the edge, I just can't leave them alone. Another one that was thick behind the edge that I reground. We're actually reblasting everything on this one. Midgard Mesker Viking. This came all the blue. From the factory, it looks all anodized. Some of it is paint, like some of the stop pins that are steel are painted, and some of the things. The only thing I didn't blast on this one was the backspacer and the clip. This clip kind of sucks as far as like actual use, and you got to kind of pretty much get in there and pry this thing up in order to get it. So you can see how the clip rounds down. Like if they just kept it straight, it would have been much better. It's better in the hand this way, but as a pocket clip, that pocket clip sucks. Like you'll literally struggle trying to get it in your pants. Not a fan of the clip. Maybe I'll make another one. I don't know. But this is the larger Viking. This is the newer run that they did. And also kind of, if you look from about here to about here, it's just a little relieved, right, kind of right there, to give it just a little bit of recurve to kind of pronounce that tip a little bit, to kind of give it a little more puncture and then straight through. Just kind of sort of want to experiment with that one a little bit. The unique thing about this knife was what surprised me, put it that way, when I got this knife was, instead of having like, you know, like Cold Steel does the phosphor bronze with the nylon on the inside and then the blade, the inside of the nylon. This does like, it's almost like a brass washer, brass looking anyhow. It's not phosphor bronze. I don't know what material it is. It just looks brass. So we'll call it brass from argument's sake right now. So brass, nylon, and then brass on both sides of the blade. So they have 3 washers on both sides. And it gives it a unique thing because it's kind of sort of has that feel like a bearing knife as far as action goes. Like there's not a lot of resistance as far as the blade goes. You see how fast it's dropping, but yet you still have that super strong, I'm pulling the lock bar out now, super strong lockup where you don't feel any wiggle at all. So I kind of really like that design, man. I kind of like that uniqueness of that. It's definitely something I'm going to experiment with, and when I start moving into trying to tweak different actions, and I might even try to take some of my knives that have lackluster actions and try this similar thing to that. All right, we down to the Sawtooths. You know, opened the whole show with the Sawtooths, but now we got the Stonewash with the DLC to kind of crown the collection here. So how many knives was that? I don't know. You tell me. What can be said about the Sawtooth? I've owned so many of these things over the years. I think at one point I had 8 Sawtooths at one time. Just the knife that pretty much embodies what I like about the knife. That's why the name Sawtooth Dave. Like I've owned this one at least since 2012-ish. Have I already said that? I might have. I don't know. That's the collection. That's the main part of the collection anyhow. I mean, there's more. I already told you. I got some in the car, some in the toolbox, some various places like saddlebags and that sort of thing that I don't use on a regular, but they're there in case I need them, backups or whatever you want to call it. But that's pretty much it. So how crazy am I for all that? How much is all that worth? I don't even want to think about how much it's worth because they'll probably cry about it. But that's my knife collection. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Almost a 50-minute video. Man, I don't think anybody's gonna make it to the, well, yeah, some of y'all will make it to the end, but a lot of people ain't gonna bail before it gets to the end. So truly appreciate it. You made it to the end. Sawtooth Dave. Catch y'all next week.